All right. Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Liberty Dad Podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. I'm your host, DL, America's most objective libertarian. If you're tuning in live, thank you so much for giving me your time so early. I want you to remember, folks, if you're a candidate running for office and you'd like an opportunity to be on the show, then head on over to candidates.libertydad.com and get yourself booked. The link is in the show notes. Available times are Tuesday and Thursday mornings at 7:30 a.m., Wednesday and Thursday evenings at 7:30 p.m. All times are Eastern, so please adjust accordingly. Speaking of candidates, tonight, 7:30, I'll have Reese Wood, who is running for Janesville City Council out of Wisconsin on. He will be discussing his run for that position. And then tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m., I will have Andrew Underwood, who is running for U.S. House out of Georgia, their 14th district. And then tomorrow night, 7:30 p.m., Alan Buckley will join me to discuss his run for U.S. Senate out of Georgia. So look forward to that. Got a lot of interviews coming up. I got some interviews next week. So I'm excited. Keep them coming in, folks. I love interviewing candidates. And yes, if you happen to be a Republican and you're watching, or you're a Democrat and you're watching and you're like, but I would like to be on the show and I would like to speak my piece, then reach out. Go to candidates.libertydad.com. Check it out in the show notes if you need. Go there and get yourself booked. And I will treat you just as fair as I do all of my libertarian peers. All right, what's on the schedule for today? Man, there's a couple of videos that are going around that got a lot of attention, and we're going to talk about them. So let me show you this first video here. I'm going to pull up Dad TV. I haven't done this in a while. I've been doing like the whole full screen, but we'll go back to Dad TV real quick. So there's a video of a service member's wife that has went viral. Actually, several videos. I'm only going to play the first one. She's got multiple videos out. She's basically excoriating the idea that we're sending troops over to Iran and how she's afraid, and she's pretty ruthless about it. So we're going to watch this video and then we're going to discuss it. So let me Let me turn on Dad TV here.
Courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties.
Let me pause it here. So the video was actually made for like TikTok. So it's 9:16. Basically, you know, it's a portrait video. Below her is like a image of Donald, or it's a video clip of Donald Trump speaking. So it's speaking. She will talk here in just a moment about what he has to say. So bear with me.
That often happens in war.
If you voted for this, I want you to know that I hate you. I mean that. I hate you. And that's not just me speaking out of fear or sadness as the spouse of an active duty service member, although I am profoundly sad and incredibly terrified right now. But I still mean it when I say that if you voted for this, I hate you. And if you know me in real life and you're watching this and you're shocked because you're thinking to yourself, well, I voted for this and I know Kendall and I know that she couldn't possibly hate me. She knows me. I want you to know it goes for you too. In fact, not only does it go for you too, I hate you twice as much as the strangers that voted for this. And you are delusional if you think that you get to look me in my eyes and tell me that you care about me while actively cheering on the man who made it very clear from the very beginning that he would happily send my husband, my soulmate, to die in a foreign country. This is monstrous. It's monstrous. They struck a school building. More than 50 little girls are dead this morning because of the man you installed in the most powerful office in the world. That's on you. And I don't know how you're going to live with yourself with that knowledge. Probably an unhealthy dose of delusion and lack of empathy for anyone else on this planet. But I can say that I don't have to live with you. I don't have to have you in my life. I don't have to have monsters in my life. And at this point, if you're still supporting this administration, you're a monster. You are a monster. You are irredeemable trash. And I do not care. The one thing I will say, I apologize to my mother for any shocked and upset phone calls she gets from people in my hometown about this video, but I'm not sorry for making it because I want you to know. I want you to know how deep my hatred for you runs right now if you voted for this. You.
Ooh, strong words. So that really struck a nerve with a lot of people. A lot of people are very angry at this woman. In fact, let's take a look at what some people had to say, because I think this is interesting. So I first came across this video. Something popped up in my feed from somebody named Buzz Patterson. I don't know who they are. In fact, most of the comments that I show you today, I don't really know who they are. All right. So here's what he said. He says, if I was deployed and fighting a war and my wife did this while I was gone, she wouldn't be my wife anymore. I feel sorry for the poor schmuck who's married to this bitch. I imagine he does too. Wow. Okay. So, and a woman's name is Kendall, by the way. So Kendall came out and said, I hate you guys. You know, a school was hit. We later found out that the school was not hit by a rocket from either the US or Israel. It apparently was a rocket that failed on the Iranian side. But nonetheless, you know, do I want to get into it? I don't want to get into it too deep, but I will say this. When October 7th happened, basically anything that happened after that, people blamed on Hamas. They said, well, Hamas started this, so therefore it's their fault. Everything. Even if Israel did it, right? Well, then that same logic should apply here. The U.S. started this war. We launched the first actual physical attack. And so therefore, if you're going to be consistent, you will say, okay, well, everything that happens after is a result of the U.S.'s actions. That's just if you're going to be consistent. But we all know that people on the internet are not going to be consistent. But anyway, let's not get sidetracked into the details necessarily. But she initially was incorrect because she was like, hey, they hit 50 children did die. It just happens to be that it wasn't from an Israeli or a U.S. rocket. It was from an Iranian rocket. So she was incorrect on whose rocket hit, but she's not incorrect that 50 children died. And to be honest with you, we should all be upset when children die. Any children. I said this back after October 7th. I said it's horrible that Hamas jumped the fence effectively and went and slaughtered 1,200 people. I also said, hey, when you're sending rockets back over there and you're downing entire buildings and we're seeing children in the rubble, that's also horrible, right? So like you just got to be consistent. And it's pretty easy to be consistent and say dead children are bad. It's a bad thing. We should feel sad about that. We should feel angry. Anyway, again, I'm trying not to get sidetracked here. So Buzz's answer to this woman was to suggest that she should be divorced, call her husband a schmuck, and then call her a bitch. Interesting. Where'd it go? There we go. So what I said in response, I said this post and many of the comments under it demonstrate the arrogant indifference to soldiers, their lives, and their families. First, if you care about soldiers, then stop talking shit about their spouses. The F is wrong with you. I was a little bit unpleasant. I get that way sometimes. I go on and I say, second, no, soldiers did not sign up to ship out to every unconstitutional war or conflict you lemmings get on board with. Families have every right to say, this one is not right. And we'll talk more about that in a moment because a lot of people had something to say like, well, they signed up for it. Don't they know they could just die? And like on the surface, that sounds logical. Yeah, they did sign up for it. But did they sign up for the U.S. to go to every single conflict that it deems is correct when it may in fact not be correct? Perhaps there's an opportunity for us to say, yeah, no, blood and treasure, not on this war. But neocons don't find a war that they don't like. I go on and I said, third, you could only be so lucky to have a spouse who is willing to lose all of their friends over the prospect of losing you. Right to hell with all of you. And I want you to think about that for a second. You could make an argument that, you know, maybe Kendall shouldn't have went to social media, but that's where we are in society. Whether you like it or not, that's where we are. People take it. They don't just express their frustrations anymore at the dinner table or over a glass of wine with their girlfriend or with a cigar necessarily out, you know, at the fire pit with their buddy. I mean, they still do, but that's not where it's limited to anymore. Now we get on social media and we express ourselves. That's the world you live in. So you better start acting like it. And I think it's amazing that people were just like, I can't believe she said that. You can't believe that a wife, at the thought of her husband dying in a war she didn't believe in, that other videos seem to suggest her husband doesn't believe in, you're surprised that they would fight back and say, not our blood, not my husband's blood, not this war. Really? Let's see, where are we here? Yeah, okay. So elsewhere, I made this observation. I said, neocons, we sure love our service members. Then I said, also neocons, let's trash this service member's wife for saying things we dislike. That's weird, right? Like, it just boggles my mind that on one hand, you're going to say, we support service members, but on the other hand, you would disrespect their wives when they say something you don't like. You think she's the first wife to go, yeah, this is not the war I want my husband dying in? No, she's not the first. She may be one of the first to get a lot of attention because now we have social media. And I don't necessarily agree that everything we think needs to go on social media, but this is kind of where we are now. Let's look at some of the comments. So let's see here. I want to point out one more thing here. So this person in response to me said, "Not the point, dude. Family members have a code of conduct too." Really? Is that written somewhere? Because to my knowledge, it's not. Family members are not, to my knowledge, held under the UCMJ. We're all told what's expected of us, especially when our family member is deployed. Maybe. When I deployed, I didn't have any family members that were told, hey, you sit down and be quiet and you accept everything the government does because our government can do no wrong. I guess that's what Delilah here is trying to tell me. But, I don't know. Maybe Dad here is overreacting. Maybe people were not as mean as I thought they were. Let's take a look. I'm shocked her husband is in the military. They are taught better than this. I'd file for divorce if I were him. She didn't make him safer at all. Maybe that was her goal. Wow. Sherry Unfiltered thinks that maybe the wife's ultimate goal was to make the husband put him in danger in somehow. Maybe his career, maybe more danger, if he gets deployed, or I don't know if he is deployed or not. It seems like he might not be. Wow. That's a heck of a charge. Really respectful of our service members, though, for sure. Was she confused about what his job entailed before this? This confuses me because they know what they are signing up for. No one is force conscripting anyone these days. If a yeast infection had a face, if I was a service member and I found somebody talking to my wife like that, your face might look like something that I'm not even going to describe, but not very far from what this comment says. Use your imagination, folks. Disgusting. We can always tell who's been a military spouse for 5 minutes. Girl, our men have been doing this for years. This must be the first deployment. My man was deployed during the Syria bombings Obama did. I didn't vote for Obama, but I wasn't wigging out like this. Maybe you should have been. Maybe you should have actually stood up for your husband a little bit more and say, is this the one that I want my husband to come home in a casket? Rather than this weird, bizarre world where we say, yeah, you signed up for it. You're supposed to go die. That's your job, to die. Wow. Amazing. Her husband was not drafted. He is serving voluntarily, and she is irate because he is doing what he signed up to do. I feel very sorry for her husband. She just ruined his career and embarrassed him to the nth degree. It's weird that, the husband hasn't come out and said, yeah, I'm embarrassed for my wife, but everybody else who doesn't know who the husband is seems to be just sure they know how the husband feels. Because you guys are so in tune with the military, right? What does she think her husband did for a living? The military is not just a free paycheck. It comes with duty and sacrifice. Oh, so we pay you to die. That's what we pay the military to do. Daughter of a career naval aviator here. If my mother did this to him, he would arrive home from work that day with divorce papers. An awful lot of you seem to be very comfortable with the idea of marriages falling apart. For all the talk about, oh no, people aren't getting married, and oh no, we're not having enough children, and oh no, where has our idyllic family gone from the 1950s? Where's my Norman Rockwell picture? I want that life back. Oh, by the way, did you say something I don't like? I hope your husband divorces you. Really? You people are insane. She's a retard who's making her husband's life harder, but hopefully it means he doesn't re-enlist. She's a retard. Call my wife a retard. I promise you, I wouldn't re-enlist either, because I would say, you know what? If that's how you talk to my wife, You don't deserve service members defending your country. Grab a gun and do it your damn self. That's what I would tell you. If that's how you talk to my wife or about my wife. This is one insufferable bitch. If she is living in U.S. military base housing, she needs to be removed immediately. She is clearly not stable. Wow. She's not stable. Her husband could be deployed somewhere and never come home. She's concerned about it. She doesn't like that. And she's unstable because she just won't give up her husband so that you people can enjoy your military adventurism from the safety of your couch. White liberal women are destroying this country. I mean, I kind of agree, but that's not really the place for this comment. I don't know if she's liberal. She's white for sure. Maybe she's liberal. Maybe she's like, hey, I'm pretty conservative, but I don't like this war. That's an option, people. Hey, Pete Hegseth, we have a troop's wife wanting her husband to get a dishonorable discharge because she hates POTUS. What an uninformed psychopath. As usual, white liberal dumbass women. Wow, Tiffany. Snitch. Really? The internet's full of these kind of comments. This one was actually very long. I just cut to the bare minimum. Okay, like it was long. It just was a long tirade. This absolute effing C word. What a soulless, entitlement-drenched military spouse going viral spewing your venom at Trump while your husband's out there with boots on the ground, balls deep in the suck, risking everything so you can sit on your ass in base housing and play victim on camera. Yes, sort of. Did people ever consider what it is that soldiers are supposedly sacrificing their lives for? It's not so that we can all say, support the president. It is so that you can say whatever you damn well please about the president. That's why soldiers die. For your freedoms. Go look it up, the Bill of Rights. Everything in there is why soldiers supposedly die, so that you have the right to criticize your government and say nasty, awful things about them. And to even say, hey, family and friends, if you support this government, I hate you. Is that wise? Not in my opinion. But is that exactly what service members sign up for? Yes, to defend just that. If we all just hold hands, sing Kumbaya, and praise King Trump, then they've died for the least amount possible. If we're all in agreement, that's the least amount possible. If I die as a soldier in a foreign land, I preferably want it to be protecting somebody or protecting my country. Right? Like those are nobody wants to die just because oil, or just because corporate America needs this, or the military industrial complex, or Israel says, hey, we're going to attack Iran. You better get on board with us. Yeah, they said that. That's a topic for a different day, maybe. But they said that. We're going to go and we're going to say, like, hey, your husband's out there balls deep, possibly going to die, but only for you to say good things about the president. Are you stupid? Last one here. I hope divorce papers are served as soon as her husband's boots hit American soil. As a former military wife, I can't imagine speaking like this while my husband was deployed. Pfft, I wouldn't speak like this even if he wasn't. Disgusting. Well, Tammy, maybe you should. Maybe you should hold our leadership a little bit more accountable than you do. Maybe you're the reason that we're losing soldiers because you don't have the nerve to stand up and, whether your husband's deployed or not, and say, hey, You promised not to take us into war, and here you are doing it. We voted for you on those grounds. We voted for you to not take us to war because we're tired of losing blood and treasure. We're tired of spending trillions of dollars on wars that we don't win and losing our mothers and our fathers, our sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, friends and other family members. We are tired of it. Maybe Tammy and everybody else, if you had said that in the first place, our government might put a little bit more effort into saying, is this the right one to possibly lose soldiers' lives? But no, you morons out there, you think that your military adventurism, that's whatever it may be, whatever BS excuses you come up with, that's the reason that soldiers should just start dying and wives go, well, he died because we needed our military to just, go out and do stuff. Didn't help our national security, didn't make us any safer. Hell, it didn't even give us any more money. Groceries are still expensive. We got nothing for it. But hey, I get to tell my child their son died. Or I'm sorry, I get to tell my child their father died so somebody else could be happy that their president was right. You people are disgusting. People that say this, people that can't think just a few seconds ahead, you people are absolutely disgusting. Any person who insults my wife can never, ever claim to support me. Ever. Because that is the person that is closest to me. Second only to my son, and only because I met her first. Might my wife one day speak out in an unpleasant way? Perhaps. But if you believe in traditional conservative values, that is for me to work out, not you. That's some of that libtard nonsense. To run around and think that you need to control other people's families, other people's spouses. Tell them, hey, get your wife under control. No, get yourself under control and mind your own damn business. If you disagree with the woman, that's fine. If you think, I wouldn't have done it, that's fine. I have no issue with that. I really don't have an issue if somebody says, I understand her frustration, but I wouldn't have said that. I wouldn't have went public. I would have kept this quiet. That's fine. You can have that comment. You have freedom of speech too. Just like I do, to say that a lot of you are absolutely terrible, immoral people. To hell with all of you. And the number of people with comments like, that's what he signed up for, it's really disturbing. It just shows how little people actually value the lives of troops, no matter what they say. If Americans really value the lives of troops, they will put extra scrutiny before sending them off to possibly never come home again. I want you to just think about that for just a second. If we send our troops somewhere and some of them don't come home, it's not that they don't come home for a year, not that they don't come home for 5 years. They don't come home ever, ever. Their children will have to grow up without them. So maybe we can spend a little extra time saying, yeah, is this the one? Is this the one that we might want to lose lives to? Is this the one that we might want a child to have to grow up never knowing their father or their mother? Is this the one? And if you can't be bothered to do that, shut up. Shut up. Because you are disgusting. Instead, these comments display that many Americans see our sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, husbands and wives as expendable. You just see them like a piece of property. No more than a round that goes downrange. Yeah, we'll expend this round. We got another. Sign up. Go get killed. That's your duty. Well, I say F that. And I am former military. I think it's great that we have a volunteer military. Now all we need to do is learn to appreciate their lives the same as many of you fat, lazy, and entitled Americans appreciate your own lives. Yeah, you. What, 2/3 of America is fat. You're obese. which means you guys sit around. Well, if I was my wife, let me eat these Cheetos real quick. If that was my wife, well, I would totally discipline her. You can't even get off the couch. It's disgusting. There's not much more to say to that. But I will make sure to be very, very clear. Anybody that ever talks to my wife like that, don't come back thinking, oh, I support you, DL. And the worse you talk about my wife, I don't know, you might get a punch in the face. You think I'm joking? Oh, DL, don't you believe in the non-aggressive? I do. I'm also a human. I also have emotions, and I will protect my family. Because if you have no more respect for my wife, you have no more respect for me. And I don't give a damn what you say. You can rah, rah, rah. You can hold the flag. You can be like, I'm going to a 4th of July parade. I support the military. Give them a bigger check. But the moment you start dogging on their spouses, the moment you start being cavalier about their lives and like, well, that's what they signed up for. No, they did not sign up to go and die in every conflict that you can dream up. They signed up to defend this country. So make sure they do that and only that. That way, if they do lose their life, then it was absolutely necessary. At some point, perhaps you take life a little more serious. And I'm going to throw a little bit of a fire before I move on to my next topic. I'm going to throw something out there. And this is not going to be, people are going to be upset about this. Remember when Charlie Kirk was assassinated and you had all the people on the left, they were celebrating, right? And they were like, yeah, I'm glad he's dead, blah, blah, blah. And they said all these very horrible, mean, awful things. And then the right was very angry and rightfully, they were rightfully angry. Like, you shouldn't talk about people, in death like that, right? Remember that? Here's what I got to say. If you are trashing this woman's wife, you are no better. You are morally the same as those people. Because at the end of the day, you have no more concern for the lives of their spouses than those idiot kids, leftist kids, had for Charlie Kirk's life. Don't get mad at me. If you're pouncing on this woman, don't get mad at me. It's all on you. All right. What's my next topic? Let's move on from that. So, speaking of viral videos, Dave Smith has a video that's going around. It's pretty viral. Matt Walsh had multiple tweets along the same line. So Matt Walsh was, and I'm not going to show them, but he's got multiple tweets where he's questioning the U.S.-led attack on Iran. And he's like, hey, I see some problems here. Okay? And so he's kind of pushing back. He's doing it in a very, you might say, passive way. Okay? And then Dave Smith, he came out with far, far, far more harsh words. So let's take a look at what Dave had to say. And this one also has some profanity. I don't know if it was bleeped out or not. I can't remember now, but let's take a listen.
Fuck JD Vance. Fuck Marco Rubio. Fuck Tulsi Gabbard. Donald Trump has made his bed. Like, this really is it. This game where there's Tucker Carlson and there's the majority of his base and there's Candace Owens and Megyn Kelly and, whatever. Donald Trump chose Mark Levin and Lindsey Graham and Benjamin Netanyahu. The most discredited, evil, laughingstocks on the planet. That's who he chose to go all in with. So he's made his bed. Let him sleep in it. I hope the Republicans lose the midterms this year. They need to. For the country, they need to be destroyed. And no one from this administration can be supported in 28. Fuck JD Vance. Fuck Marco Rubio. Fuck Tulsi Gabbard. Fucking, she hasn't resigned yet? Fuck Tulsi Gabbard. Dude, the goddamn no war with Iran shirts that she was selling. How much money you make off those shirts, Tulsi? How can you not return that money?
Wow. Strong words. Far stronger than what Matt had to say. But here's the thing. So Dave is getting a lot of criticism from a wing of the libertarian crowd, and also some of the conservative crowd as well. They like to try to dunk on him. And then Matt Walsh is getting some pushback as well. I probably should have put up, but he had multiple tweets, and I didn't want to try to read like 100 tweets on the show today. But he was basically questioning. He was like, look, the logic doesn't make sense. Part of his argument was, hey, up until like 5 seconds ago, most of you were opposed to war with Iran. Then all of a sudden, when Donald Trump does it, you're like, hey, this is a good idea. And he's like, if you changed your mind, then fine. Tell me what changed your mind about that. But otherwise, he basically said, you're being a hypocrite, right? So both of them are getting pushback. And some people are trying, some people more on the conservative side, they're trying to like basically silence Matt. And then some people on the libertarian side are trying to silence Dave Smith. And I want to kind of focus more on Dave Smith, okay? Because what's interesting is a lot of I see too many, I don't want to say a lot because I don't know how many exactly, but there are too many anti-war folks who dislike Dave and feel that he should no longer have a voice. And part of their argument is like, well, he supported Trump, so therefore he supported Trump despite Trump's record and should have known better. I'll get to that argument in a minute. So therefore, he needs to sit this one out, right? Like that's kind of the argument that's being made. And here's what I find strange about that. If you're part of the anti-war crowd, and let's just say that you dislike Dave, which is fine. You don't have to like Dave. That's fine. Okay. Who do you think in the anti-war crowd can be expected to be heard by Republicans? Do you expect Trump voters who now support the war with Iran, do you expect them to talk to Republicans and say, maybe we shouldn't do this? No, they're supporting the war. So obviously they're out. And do you expect Trump or Republicans to hear people who voted for a different candidate? I mean, I voted for Chase Oliver and I was very public about it. Okay. And so like, yeah, great. I saw this coming. Woohoo. Many other people did too. And they didn't vote for Trump. Maybe they voted for Kamala Harris. Maybe they properly voted for Chase. Or in fairness, maybe they just said, you know what? I don't feel like voting this time around. Whatever. Right. But for any of those people that did not vote for Trump, why would we expect Republicans to listen to me or any of them? Why? I clearly wasn't going to vote for the Republican Party. So they have no reason to listen to me. That doesn't mean that I'm wrong. And that doesn't mean that my voice doesn't need to be heard. But that does mean that I should probably be a little bit more welcoming to even those who voted for Trump and are now coming out strongly and saying, no, this is not what we voted for. Maybe the anti-war crowd needs to be a little bit more accepting because those are the voices that actually might get heard. And when they come, when it's shown that there's enough of them joining with enough of us, people that did not vote for Trump but are also anti-war, that's when there's power in numbers. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that phrase, but it's actually true. Or do some of you people think, oh, wow, do you think that the Republicans are going to look and say, oh, wow, that DL, Liberty Dad, he is something else. He's so consistent. He saw this coming. He refused to vote for us. We should totally hear him out now. You really think they're going to do that? No, and no some more. In fact, dismissing those who voted for Trump, who are now upset with him, I would argue, is why we have the elected representatives that we have. The ones that don't really listen to us, the ones like Randy Fine, who seem to talk about everything else except for his district. You virtually never hear him talking about, hey, there's this thing going on in my district, and I found out that many other districts also have this thing going on. I'm going to propose some legislation to address this. No, he's worried about Sharia law. He's worried about puppies. He's worried about Mamdani. He's worried about how people feel about the Jews. He doesn't really talk much about his constituents and what they are telling him. He's not saying, hey, the people that voted for me are happy or upset about this thing, whatever this thing might be. He's not saying that. Why? Because we are doing what we're doing right now. We are telling people, sorry, you should have known better. Your voice gets excluded. And you're doing that only because you have a personal vendetta against them. That's it. That's the only reason that you're doing it. You're not doing it because it makes sense. You're not doing it because it would actually stop the war. You're not doing it for any other reason than your own selfishness. Kind of like the people that are criticizing Kendall for being an outspoken military spouse. They're doing it for their own selfishness, right? They're not supporting the troop, in that particular case, the husband, right? Any more than people who are telling Dave Smith to sit down are supporting of movement to really see anti-war come to fruition. By telling people who voted for Trump and who are now excoriating him to sit down, you are enabling the very system that we all complain about. The one where politicians prioritize who has more money. Now, a moment ago, I said I would address this argument, like Dave, he was a libertarian. He's not new to politics. He should have known better. Therefore, because he should have known better, he doesn't get to speak now. And in general, the knew better is a fair criticism, right? Like that's not an unwarranted criticism. I don't think it follows that it means he should sit down, all right? Because it doesn't work when someone has a massive platform and is using it to push back against the politicians who govern opposite of how they campaign. Right? Like, that's what he's doing. That's what you're trying to silence. And so I don't think that criticism functions. Furthermore, I absolutely reject that argument like I have in the past. So back when Chase Oliver was running, I took a lot of heat for defending and supporting him. One argument that was made was that he was what was the word? He disqualified himself. Basically, he was not qualified to be the libertarian representative, the nominee for president, because he wasn't good enough on COVID. And so people were like, yeah, he knew better. He's a libertarian and he took a weak position on COVID, so therefore he can't be our representative. I rejected that argument, right? And critics, they would post photos of him wearing like a mask, and they would say that, it showed that he wasn't capable of leading. Okay? It was nonsense for a variety of reasons, probably the biggest being that people making the argument, they were actually voting for Trump, who initiated much of what went wrong with COVID and has since boasted about it. So it's kind of weird that the people who were like, Chase is not qualified to represent the Libertarian Party because he should have known better during COVID. But by the way, let me go vote for the guy that initiated it and continues to boast about it. What? And libertarians have the audacity to be like, I'm so principled. No, you're not. And look, I don't really get into the whole principled argument. That's not my thing. But I will say, libertarians love to pride themselves about being principled. That is not principled. So, like, that's just crazy. Back then, though, here's the thing. My argument against the whole should have known better was simple. Sure, you can make the argument that Chase should have been stronger against COVID. But even despite that flaw, he was better than either Harris or Trump on COVID. Even when you consider that, he was still better about COVID, lockdowns, mandates, all of that stuff. He went along with it in his own, like he personally went along with it. But he drew a sharp line and said, no mandates, no shutdowns. But then he wore a mask and that was enough. So that's why I was like, no, I'm rejecting this argument. That was me back then saying, no, he was better. Even still, even when we consider that problem, he was still better than the alternatives. Fast forward to today, and many people who supported Chase are now using a variant of that same argument against Dave. So they didn't like the argument then that, he should have known better. And people made their various arguments in counter to that. But then they come along, and because they don't like Dave, that's really the reason. They don't like Dave, so therefore they're going to take that same argument that they once pushed back against, and they're going to use it against him. Dave needs to take a seat. He should have known better. Oh. If it's so true that we can only have people in prominent positions who always do well, never make a mistake, whether they own them or not, then two things. Number one, you are engaging in a dumb purity test, which is funny because like people have accused me of making purity tests, which I have never accepted. I always reject purity test. But that's what this is. It is a purity test. It's a purity test to say, are you pure enough? No, therefore you don't get to have a voice. Kind of the same with the military wife. Kendall Brown, are you a pure enough military wife? Do you do the things that we think you should do? If not, then you're not a good military spouse. Doesn't matter what the husband thinks. Society is determined. They decide what a good, they decide if you're a pure enough military spouse. And then two, the other problem with this about only wanting people in prominent positions that always do well, never make a mistake. The other problem with that is you are literally confirming that those who dismissed Chase over not being strong enough on COVID had a point. You are confirming that, hey, if you're willing to discredit, to say Dave no longer has a voice today because he should have known better, then you are confirming everybody that said they will not vote for Chase because he should have known better during COVID. You are confirming that their vote was reasonable. You can't have it both ways. I'm right because I'm actually consistent. And I actually disagreed with Dave on his support for Trump. I thought it was no less foolish than his prior support for Blake Masters out of Arizona, which I also criticized. And on both accounts, Dave and I had some exchanges. They weren't testy. He's good at matching energy, and we kept it civil. But we disagreed on that. But I have the sense to know, hey, right now, he's saying the right thing. We need that. And we need to demonstrate to people that if your elected representative does not do the right thing, you should come out strongly and hold them accountable. We should be hearing a lot more F-bombs from people who elect somebody that campaigns one way and governs the opposite. That should be the norm. We should not be looking at Dave's comments as if there's some sort of exception. It should be boring. We should be like, yep, another person dissatisfied with their representative. How often does this happen? Or maybe it shouldn't be boring. Maybe it should be, wow, that representative too? Dang, we got to get rid of a lot of people come next election. But instead, people are choosing their personal feelings over actually creating a better society. A better society is one that holds their elected representatives accountable, and it's one that doesn't send off their members to die in wars that they don't need to be dying in. And let's put it this way. The arena of ideas can be a battlefield. You go to war with the people you have, not the people you wish you had. Sorry that I got to invoke that reference. If you don't like me invoking it, I think it's Dick Cheney. If you don't like that reference, then stop making bad arguments. Now, let's take a quick pause here. And I'm going to go to intermission. And then when we come back, I will discuss an exchange that I had just recently. And we're going to use my experience as a learning lesson for the rest of y'all. So we'll be right back.
The day I got cited, I was blindsided.
I couldn't believe that I was in America. I left a place where that stuff happens, but not here. Here, this is the land of opportunity.
I didn't do anything wrong.
I just couldn't believe it. I didn't do anything wrong.
You think that you're doing things the right way. You think that you're a law-abiding citizen.
And they said I was under arrest for braiding hair, and they took me to jail.
They seized a little over $100,000 out of my business account here. Took 13 years to get it and less than 13 seconds, I guess, to take it away.
I remember my attorneys telling me, most people don't win against the government.
Because I know now that we have more than just a chance. I know that we're going to keep our homes.
If we win here at the U.S. Supreme Court, it makes a difference for my girls and for so many other families.
I'm fighting back because I don't want to have a lot of other people have to go through the same thing I'm going through with their property getting seized.
We changed the laws so that everybody else can be treated fairly.
I want the opportunity
to operate my legal business,
to practice my craft,
to meet the needs of my community in an innovative way.
And someone has to stand up.
All right. Now, sometimes I like to pick apart memes. And that's perhaps partly out of intrigue, but also maybe pedantry. I'm a libertarian after all. That's kind of what we do. I'm going to do it again, but this time it's in the context of an exchange that I had online. Now, first, let me say up front that my exchange was impolite and not really becoming of how I generally wish to engage people. So in that sense, you know, I have a little bit of regret. Not too much. I'm not really the regretting type. But I do admit that I got a little incensed. We'll talk about that. But I also think that I wasn't entirely out of line. So what is all the fuss about? Well, let's go through the exchange first, just a few slides here, and then we'll walk through my thoughts on it. So let me pull this up here. All right. And let's see. We'll use the neutral music for right now. All right. That's not the one. Listen. There we go. All right. So this is a comment that started by Matt Walsh. Okay. And what he said was, it's not just nostalgia. This was our childhood, and it's gone now. As a parent, you can, through great effort, create the conditions for some version of this for your own children today. But the problem is that most of the other kids are screen-addicted zombies who don't really want to run around outside until the street lights turn on. So an energetic, free-spirited kid who'd rather climb a tree than stare at a screen ends up being kind of isolated. 30 years ago, he'd have been the most popular kid in the neighborhood. Now, the other kids in the neighborhood are home with the screen, and he's climbing the tree by himself. And then Matt had included a picture. It was like at sunset with a kid riding their bicycle down the street. And if you're my age, you remember that, right? You remember the idea of get home before the street lights turn on, something like that. You know, each parent had their different rules, but many of them were, fell along the lines of, you better be home by the time the street lights turn on. That's what I remember. And wherever I was, I had to make sure that I had plenty of time to get home. And who knows, it'd be like, Mom, we're going to the park, which would be like maybe a mile away. And then we would be like 4 miles away on our bicycles doing who knows what, right? We did and we were outside a lot. I spent many summers playing outside. I will say this. I also spent many summers playing inside on a Nintendo with my friends, trying to beat that one level in whatever game was really catching our interest at the time, right? Like I spent a lot of time doing that. I just want to point that out. So anyway, I responded with this. I said, perhaps you live in the wrong neighborhood. There are several families a block from our house that my son plays with outside regularly. Sure, sometimes he's on a screen. And sometimes, like my mama did to me, I tell him to get out of the house before I put him to work. Then this guy responds to me. He says, JFC, Jesus effing Christ, dude. And he posts this meme. And then here's the meme in full. The meme says this. It's a picture of this liberal woman from a college campus several years back. And it says, the easiest and quickest way to test someone's intelligence is to make a generalized statement about a group. Say something like, Asian men are shorter on average. If they say any variation of, not all Asian men are short, or I know a tall Asian guy, you are dealing with someone genuinely low IQ. They have proven that they aren't intelligent enough to understand abstract ideas like statistical average or per capita. Why else would they think bringing up an exception like it was some profound statement? They literally cannot understand abstracts. No attempt at rationalizing or explaining yourself will increase their IQ. That's what somebody responded to me with in this casual conversation that I'm having with Matt, right? It's not really a conversation. It was just a post that I made toward him. So then I fire back and I say, oh no, you lack reading comprehension. Matt said, quote, as a parent, you can through great effort, end quote. And I said, to which I pointed out, it literally happened naturally for me, no great effort as a parent. Then I went on and said, and plenty of people look for neighborhoods with kids playing outside. They came back with another meme, and it just was like one of those memes where it's kind of like showing disgust, like, oh, I can't believe it. So I said, look, I live in a neighborhood of about 350 homes with several groups of kids of varying ages that are regularly outside riding bicycles, fishing, etc. My wife is a real estate agent who frequently works with people looking for family-friendly neighborhoods. Exactly how many examples are enough to push back against a faulty generalization? Do better than shitty memes or follow someone else, because the person previously was following me. They have since corrected that. Then they came back and said, you're doing the meme again, you effing clown. And so, as you can see, a little tense. So let's break this down as a learning experience for you and somewhat myself. Okay, so let's go back to slide 1 here, and we're going to take a look at what Matt was saying. Matt is making a generalization here. Okay, yes, he is. Generalizations can be based off of basically two things: data or observation or some form of an assumption. That's what they're going to be based on. That's what you're going to make a generalization on. You know, like, I saw a black person do this, so therefore black people do this. That would be a generalization based on an observation. Or you might say, so many percentage of black people have this many degrees, therefore black people like this, you know, this path in school, something like that, right? That's a generalization based on data. May not be a good one, but it is a generalization. Now, nothing in Matt's comment here indicates that he's looking at data. This is going to be key to understanding the whole dispute. It's not clear what information he's drawing this universal truth from, but it seems likely that he's speaking from a personal observation of his neighborhood and perhaps people that he knows that live in other neighborhoods. So then we go to my comment here. My response is also a generalization based off an anecdote, right? I'm saying, hey, that's not happening in my neighborhood. So at first, on the surface, it might seem, well, DL, you are doing the meme, right? Go back over to the meme here, right? DL, you are doing the meme. That's what it might seem like at first. But then you actually have to read it. Number 1, in this first paragraph, it sets the stage for an insult. It's called an ad hominem, right? By suggesting that this is somehow a litmus test for intelligence. We actually have tests. They're called IQ tests. That's how you determine somebody has a low IQ or a high IQ, right? But this starts off by saying, what you're about to read is a test for IQ, for intelligence, not a test for a good argument, but intelligence. So we're starting off with an insult, an ad hominem. Not very good. If you want to get into, hey, you're doing the meme, hey, that's a logical fallacy, I don't know. Perhaps don't send a meme that starts off with saying, we're going to insult your intelligence if you don't, if this is not applicable to you or if it is applicable to you. Now, second, in the second paragraph here, memes, first and foremost, memes are like analogies. They don't have to be one-to-one, but they do need to be relatively close. Otherwise, it's not a good analogy, okay? So I want you to notice that this meme uses the example of, quote, Asian men are shorter on average. That is a claim quantified by statistics. Responding with the claim of, quote, not all Asian men are short not only doesn't dispute the claim of Asian male height, but it actually confirms it. Because that's what an average means, that some will be above it and some will be below it. That's how averages work. So if somebody says Asian men are shorter on average, and then you respond and say, well, not all Asian men, you really aren't saying anything insightful, because you're kind of confirming in a way what they're saying. Well, yeah, not all Asian men. Otherwise, the comment would be, all Asian men are short, or all Asian men are shorter than this, right? That's what it would be. But instead, they're shorter on average compared to something else. And then you're saying, well, compared to something else, not all of them. Yes. Okay. So yeah, you're right. In a sense, if you take this approach, if you try to use an anecdote to dispute data, you probably are doing the meme. But that's not what's happening here. Third, the meme goes on to reinforce this quote unquote intelligence test. It's here, excuse me, it's intended to be based on whether someone can understand abstract ideas like, and this is in the meme itself, statistical averages or per capita. In other words, quantified observation. And then the meme reinforces that, aha, you're too dumb to be engaged with. So it's basically like, all right, if you do this, you're dumb. This is our test. It's a logical fallacy, but you can totally use this meme to point out that somebody else might have committed a logical fallacy. Do you see the problem here? And hopefully this helps you as you go about, because we're all on social media. Hopefully I'm showing you all this so that you understand how arguments work and how they don't work. Now, if we go back to slide 1 here, I keep calling it slide 1. I should call it something else, right? Matt didn't make an abstract claim rooted in any form of measurement like statistics or per capita. All he did was he made a value judgment based on most likely observation. Now, if there was data behind it, he just didn't present it. So I have to go by, all right, it's probably observation. Seems like it's a casual conversation. Just something that seems like a conversation you might have while drinking beers at the bar. Okay? This is not, he's not like, all right, here's my philosophically sound argument. It's not what's happening here. He's just making a comment. And I, in return, made another comment. What Matt didn't say was, he didn't say, oh, a study of 50 random neighborhoods show that kids play outside in some percentage less than kids playing outside is some percentage less than children did in this prior year. He didn't say that. He instead claimed that kids were zombies and addicted to screens, and that a kid 30 years ago who climbed trees would be the most popular kid, whereas he would be lonely now. That's not quantified data. That's just a value judgment. Maybe the kid still wouldn't have been cool 30 years ago because he could climb a tree because nobody liked him for some other reason, right? Maybe there are some kids that are kind of like zombies and they are kind of addicted to screens, which I don't dispute. But the question is it so many that parents are just going to be unable to find this more idyllic neighborhood where their kids can run out and play? Well, there's nothing to falsify this because there's no data here to work with. So we go back here, and my rebuttal was to point out my random experience pushes back at Matt's assumption of a societal shift. In other words, basically, we're just having a casual conversation. Like, that's really all that's happening. It's this casual conversation. Matt said a thing, I said a thing back. We're not trying to be philosophically sound. We're not trying to say, well, my argument, it doesn't have any flaws to it. It doesn't use any logical fallacies. We're not saying that. We're just talking. Sometimes people do that, folks. And then I offered that other neighborhoods have similar experiences, right? And then we go to this slide over here. I go on and my accuser, he responded to me with a dumb meme. So then I push back. And my point here is that Matt is making a claim that I believe evidence, just regular observational evidence, counters. Again, it's just a casual conversation, casual interaction. And I'm saying there's evidence in my own neighborhood of 350 or so homes with many kids of varying ages. And, my son is 7. So he's got his group of friends that are about the same age. They ride their bicycles sometimes up and down the street. They go fishing. They play at one another's house. You know, they do all this stuff. Neighbors across the street, they've got older kids. I've heard them out as late as like 9 or 10 in the wintertime, which means it's very dark, you know, out there running around, screaming, having fun. You know, on a Saturday afternoon, you might go out and you might see people walking their dogs, kids having fun, riding their bicycles, walking to the lake, walking over here, going to a friend's house. You see all this stuff, right? And I was like, look, I see this, and I didn't actually have to work hard. I literally just showed up, and it wasn't like that to begin with. And then after I had a kid, I was like, oh, wow, there's a lot of kids in the neighborhood and they're outside playing. This is great. Right? So I didn't have to put any effort into it. Right? I'm saying this is like evidence to push back on a casual comment. And then I point out, I'm like, well, my wife's a real estate agent. So she interacts, not all the time. It's not like every customer that she has, but she does find people that are like looking for a nice family neighborhood. Right. This is why people will go to where the best schools are. They're like, where are the best schools? I want to live in that area. Right. Because they're looking for this kind of neighborhood that Matt is lamenting doesn't exist anymore. And you can only have it if you work extra, extra hard. So it's not to say that what Matt says was completely untrue. It's not to say that what I said was completely true. And it's not to say that, no, it is to say that the criticism of me was flat wrong. It was just outright incorrect. Because, and like, look, I'm not butthurt about it, okay? I'm mostly, if you ask me like my personal feelings on this, my personal feelings are, I wish I had done a better job. That's my personal feelings. I think I could do better. I shouldn't have got a little bit hot under the collar. But when you insult my intelligence, you know, sharp words are generally to follow. That's kind of how I operate. And so I looked at this and I just said, bro, it's just a casual conversation. We're not having, you know, a heated debate where logical fallacies matter, for which you made your own, and you improperly used a meme. You tried to apply it where it didn't make sense. Matt's not making statistical claims. I'm not countering them with an anecdote. It's not like somebody says, you know, 50,000 people were polled, and then I go, yeah, but my experience is different. Okay, that's possible that your experience is different. But that's not what happened here in this exchange. What happened was Matt made a random comment that wasn't rooted in any significant logical, you know, construct. And I did as well. And I just countered and I said, yeah, I think you got that wrong, buddy. I think there are neighborhoods out there, plenty of neighborhoods out there, actually, that dispute that we can't have that. Now, is it less than what we had as a child? Probably. I would agree to that. I don't think it happens nearly as much. Because, why do I say that? Because you can see the random story every so often of like an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old that's walking down to the park, you know, that's like a mile away, and the police pick them up and then come to the house and then arrest the parent, right? And the parent has to go through the court system and, you know, prove that they're a good parent for allowing their child, you know, their 8 or 10-year-old to walk down the street to the park. That kind of thing didn't happen when I was a kid. When I was a kid, if you saw somebody that was 8 or 10 years old walking to the park, you were like, some kids. That's it. You might have paid attention to make sure they weren't bad kids that were going to, like, you know, kick your flowers or something like that. But otherwise, you just didn't care. You didn't call the police. So yeah, we do live in a different world. And yes, we didn't have screens as available when I was younger. Like, I actually had to be inside at my TV playing Nintendo, right? Or Coleco if you're older. Like, but I had to be there. Like, today we have phones. We can walk around glued to our phones. And many people do, including many young people. But don't pretend like we still don't have a society that has plenty of neighborhoods where kids are outside playing. Don't pretend there aren't plenty of parents who are like, yeah, get outside and play. I do it. I know multiple people who do it. Right? This is not some one-off experience. I am saying I think there's a lot more. And if we want to foster it, the number one thing that we have to do, if we want it to grow, we have to first acknowledge that it exists. Then we have to say it is a good thing. Then we have to support each other when they do it. which means when we see the police arresting parents whose children were walking to the park a half a mile away, we need to throw a big fit and say, whoa, whoa, whoa. No, absolutely not. It's good that kids are outside. You were wrong to arrest them. If you want to stop as an officer and just ask the kids what's up, where they're going, check on them, cool. I have no issue with that. Hey, boys, what you guys doing? We're walking to the park, officer. Cool. Have fun. That's how you get more of that. If you want more of it, act like it. And as for these kind of online debates, stop trying to hold everybody to every single logical fallacy that you can think of. It's gotten absurd. Like, people will be like, well, it's like the spelling Nazis out there. They're like, you used the wrong there. Therefore, your argument's no good. What? Are we trying to make a better society or are we not? We can make a better society if we learn to recognize when somebody is making a very egregious error and when it matters, and then learning to tactfully point that out. Like somebody, like instead of posting that meme, what Metal Maven could have done was to say, hey man, does your personal experience really, does it really reflect a large group of people in America? And then I could say, well, I think it does, right? And then we could start having a conversation about why I believe that my experience is really not that uncommon, or not that uncommon. Why it's more common than Matt was presenting it out to be. We could have had that conversation. But instead, he chose to use a logical fallacy to try to pin me down on a logical fallacy. Now, if you want to get rigorous, did I make some errors? Sure. Should I have led with an anecdote? No. But I was also having a casual exchange. That's all I was trying to do. And we need to learn to distinguish when it's time to get nitpicky and when it's time to see the broader point that's trying to be made. That's what makes our country better. And it also makes our country better when we start saying, hey, yeah, you voted for this guy even though I thought you shouldn't have, but now you're coming out strongly against them. Good for you. I'm right behind you. Still disagree with what you said last time. Disagree with this other thing that you're saying. But on this one, you got my support 100%. And for our military members, we're going to make a better society when we stop cavalierly sending them off to die. And when we stop trashing their wives. That's what makes America great. All right. Let me get to some comments here. Let's go to the live chat and see what some of y'all are saying. Glad you are on, DL. I'm glad that you showed up too, Keith, and I appreciate it. And I apologize I was a bit late. Where's Congress in an undeclared war? Boy, that's a whole nother conversation. But you're right. We did not declare a war. And in my opinion, people are trying to present the War Powers Act as some sort of gotcha, like, oh, the president was within his rights. That's because you haven't read it and you don't know what it says. Because nothing about this Iran conflict was legitimate under the War Powers Act, which, by the way, I don't even believe was constitutional. That's a different topic. But I did talk about it back in one of my episodes. Go look it up. Just look up War Powers Act. Search my channel. You can find it. Let's see. Is YouTube censoring live chat? Not that I'm aware of, but I don't know. Typical libertarian, pick up a gun and defend you and yours like the Minutemen. Yes, absolutely. Defend you and yours. And respect others. I'll add that. That'll make America great. All right, folks. That is a wrap for today. Hope you found it informative and inspiring. Do me a favor, stop back later, drop a comment with your thoughts. Did I miss something? Maybe I need to offer a correction. Perhaps you just want to be promiscuous with praise. Whatever the case, I'm all ears. Remember, tonight, 7:30, I have another candidate. I'll be interviewing a candidate tonight at 7:30. In fact, let me just reiterate which candidate that is. That will be Reese Wood. He's running for Janesville City Council. So we will be on tonight, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Then tomorrow morning, 7:30 a.m., which I will not be late for, Andrew Underwood. He is running for U.S. House out of Georgia, their 14th district. And then tomorrow night, 7:30 p.m., Alan Buckley will join me to discuss his run for U.S. Senate out of Georgia. But with that being said, I'm out. I will see you tonight. You know that I'm all about supporting organizations that hold my values. Make sure you head on over to blackgunsmatter.shop. They've got apparel, stickers, and more. Use the code LibertyDad, all one word, at checkout to score a 10% discount. Or just hit the referral link in the show notes. That'll make it so much easier. Remember, I'm not just a voice on a mic. I'm a dad who's working hard to deliver to you the best libertarian content. Connect with me on Linktree, where you'll find links to my Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee, because, you know, every bit helps keep this show rolling. Plus, you can find me on my other platforms to stay in the loop. With your help, this show, The Message of Liberty, will be seen and heard by more people. As always, I appreciate you tuning in and look forward to seeing